guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about drag kid, not Desmond, but another drag kid called Lactatia. I think that a really big part of this discussion, which people sometimes forget, is that when we talk about these kids in drag, I'm not commenting on the LGBTQ community, I'm not commenting on the trans community, I'm not commenting on the drag community, I'm commenting on what I think is healthy and unhealthy for a child, what I think is exploitation and what isn't. A lot of people commented saying that I'm picking on the LGBTQ community and that there are pageants and other things that we can pay attention to, and that's certainly true. I think pageants are problematic, but I also think that that's been discussed a lot, whereas this is a relatively new topic because via social media, kids in drag really are at the forefront, which is why I'm talking about it. It's also important for me to state, though I think this is obvious, these kids do not represent the LGBTQ community. Many people in the LGBTQ community are not okay with these kids being exploited. Duh. Felt like it was obvious, but I'm just gonna say it. Since we're talking about what's healthy and unhealthy, I'd like to thank today's sponsor, which is Clue, which is a period tracking app. Now, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you'll know that I recently suffered from peak anxiety, worse than usual, and what ended up happening is that, TMI, sorry, but I ended up not having my period for a number of months because the anxiety really got to me. Once that happened, I realized that it was important for me to keep better tabs on when I last got my period, what the patterns are, how I can prepare. So Clue is great for that. So as you can see here on Clue, you can input all your previous periods and then it will give you a bit of an estimate of when you'll get your next period. It'll give you an average of how often you get your periods, how long they last, the bleeding, everything. I would strongly suggest downloading it, especially if you're someone who has problems like me, or if you just want to make sure that everything's working properly, or especially if you are trying to have children. Now, it's obvious Clue is not a contraceptive, but it's a way to monitor when it would be best for you to plan to have children. So you can download it by looking up Clue or period tracking app in the App Store, and it's entirely free. Another interesting thing with Clue, which I think is really useful, is that you can track changes in your skin, hair, energy, cravings, and moods, which is really important for a lot of people, me especially. And then Clue also understands how birth control affects your skin, your moods, your periods, and cramps. So it's a great way to overall keep track of how your health is doing, especially if, like I said, you have problems like me or are looking to get pregnant. Anyway, if you are interested in that, I will leave a link below in the description and you can check it out. Let's get into the topic at hand, shall we? If you've been on Twitter, you most likely have seen this picture that is somewhat viral about Lactatia, this 10-year-old child who's actually called Nemes, who is posing with a naked man.
Well, I don't know how many years on this earth I got left. I'm gonna get real weird with it.
I'll include the picture here. This picture has since been taken down from Nemes's account, as far as I understand. There was an article on Daily Wire that I saw that had the picture, but now it says this photo or video has been removed from Instagram. There's this article from Huck that's titled, Queen Lactatia, What Life is Like as a Child Drag Queen, We Need to Talk About Nemes. So Lactatia is the name that Nemes chooses to go by, or at least when he's dressed up. In an age defined by identity politics, the debates surrounding child drag queens are some of the most contentious. To critics, the subculture represents the abasement of youth and everything they consider normal. To others, it's merely kids playing dress up. A child at the center of this political and cultural storm is 10-year-old Nemes, otherwise known as Queen Lactatia, the most prominent child drag star in Canada. We really didn't bat an eyelash, says his mother, reflecting on the first time her son began wearing his sister's clothes. He's one of the most creative, curious, and magical kids. At some point he saw girls' clothes were a little bit fancier than boys, and wearing girls' clothes seemed to fit the kind of kid that he was. Now, like I've previously said, I don't think there's anything wrong with letting your child explore their identity. I really don't. I think that the danger comes into it when they might pigeonhole their identity. Now, I don't put this responsibility on children, especially not 10-year-olds, because how would they even know? This responsibility falls on the parents' shoulders. As much as parents should encourage children to look through their identity and go through a process, I also think that parents shouldn't be actively encouraging their child to be A or B. I think they should let them explore, but also not be like, hey, if you figure it out at 10 that you're this, then you're for sure this, because, you know, that might not be the case. It might be, but it also might not be. Okay, so I'm gonna skip around this article, but I'll link it below because I don't want to make you stay here for 20 years. But at one point, the mother says, "For the most part, people are supportive," adds Jess, "but I'm a 6-foot, broad, heavy metal kind of woman. My husband is that way too. If people have those feelings, they don't talk about them with us very much." How badass of you.
Back here with another installment of Project Badass.
Although the family appear to have had a relatively easy time of it in liberal Montreal, it's difficult to imagine that being the case in other parts of the world. In the UK, this 14-year-old Lewis Bailey was banned from performing his drag act at his school's end-of-year talent show. On other continents, stories of provocation towards drag queens are much more harrowing. This is how Nemes chooses to express himself. He's just a kid playing. There's much more going on in the world right now, which is more horrifying and terrifying than my child wearing fancy shoes and a skirt. That shouldn't be on anyone's list of priorities. The thing I have an issue with here is to say that more serious things are happening around the world. That's always going to be true. But if we act like that and we're only going to ever talk about the super serious things like war and death, then we're never going to talk about other things that are still damaging nonetheless. And no one's claiming that Nemes dressing up is causing people to die, but people are maybe questioning whether his parents are exploiting Nemes, which I 100% think they are, because it's hard for me to imagine that if Nemes chose to be something that isn't particularly trendy, I don't know how much his parents would encourage it if they weren't making money off of it. Now that's just me being skeptical, but at the same time, it just seems like the common thread with a lot of these families who have very young children performing is that they keep them very much in the public eye, which isn't inherently bad. Like, if a video goes viral, it's not like the parents can really stop that. The thing is that if they continue to push their child to be in situations that by definition will go viral, I don't know how much the child would enjoy that, right? Because the point of drag for Lactatia here would be that they enjoy what they're doing. It's not supposed to be centered on monetary gain, and yet here it really just seems like it is. However, despite Jessica's argument and similar cries from supporters in the LGBTQ community, the subject still remains a priority for many people. Ben Shapiro, alt-right mouthpiece and fierce critic of child drag queens, argues that drag performances sexualize children. I tend to agree that I think that a lot of them sexualize children because, first of all, it depends on what they're wearing and it depends on the situation. But even with what we saw with Desmond, who by the way blocked me, but anyway, a child should not be in a bar performing, and he should not be taking tips from people. And people told me in the comments that drag has reveals where you reveal your costume, and so it's different than stripping. And I can understand that, but I'm just saying that there's a very small nuance there in my mind, because if you're an adult and you're doing a reveal, that's fine. But when you're a child, the difference between that reveal and stripping to pedophiles, I don't think makes that big of a difference. But anyway, in 2017, Shapiro posted a YouTube video directly referring to Nemes and Jessica, stating that the child's mother had chosen to destroy the kid's life for attention. I don't know how aware the mom is. I don't want to act like she's stupid, but maybe she's blinded if we give her the benefit of the doubt, which I don't really think that's the case, but let's say that's possible. But I do think that this child might not really be all that happy about this in a couple of years, whether he's still Lactatia or not. There's something about child years that I think should be somewhat private. Like I said with the Desmond situation, there are plenty of child stars, most of them, that end up being super fucked up in one way or another. It's a very adult-centered type of entertainment, so I don't know how a child really fits into that without having to bend to fit the adult standards. Then they say, drag is an adult arena and that's where people question our judgment, concedes Jessica, so we have to censor things. He knows there are adult aspects of drag that he's not allowed to apply to his show.
I don't know what the that was.
So what's with the picture with the naked person? I'm just curious, how is that appropriate for a 10-year-old? Because I just want to know. Because that to me seems so wildly inappropriate that I genuinely thought that it was photoshopped or that something wasn't real, because it seems like such an immense lapse of judgment and pure idiocy that I just can't imagine someone really thinking that little. But then again, when you have half a brain cell, maybe that's what happens. We would never try to overtly sexualize our child, but if he wears something that makes him feel beautiful, what right do I have to stop him wearing that dress because it might cause people to think things they shouldn't be thinking? It's a circular problem. Now, to be fair, I understand her point here. It's the kind of thing of, why should I adjust my life if other people are wrong? And you know what? Nobody should be looking at children having sexual thoughts. Like, pedophiles should not be thinking that. I think we can all agree. But in order to protect and defend your child from these pedophiles, it's usually best to not put them in A, situations where there might be pedophiles, like at a bar where a child is performing, or get them to cover up. Is it fair that children might not be able to wear crop tops or shorts sometimes in certain situations? Yeah, it's not fair, but at the same time, you want to defend your child. So here, this whole thing of what right do I have? You're his parent. You have the right to say, hey, I would rather you wear something else because it's not a good look for this situation. This whole thing of blindly accepting anything and saying it's okay is bull, because it's not okay. Not everything is made to be accepted. Children need boundaries.
What? What the fuck?
I don't even know why I still have to say this, but children do need boundaries, the same way that if I were wearing something of too revealing to go to dinner with my mom and her colleagues, she would say, hey, not that. Okay, that's fine. That's setting a boundary. That's teaching the child to defend and protect themselves and also know what's appropriate and what's not appropriate in each particular situation. This whole idea of, oh, we don't want to sexualize him, but if he feels nice in something that people might sexualize him in, I'm not going to tell him no. That's not okay. He's a child. Defend him. That's your job. So then the article says, drag shows are, by their essence, adult-themed arenas characterized by body humor and sexual references. In their rawest form, they probably aren't the most suitable place for a 10-year-old to be hanging out. Well, shit, they figured it out. Conversely, however, all drag queens have to start somewhere, so why not under the supervision of his parents in a controlled environment? What controlled environment?
If there is one thing I hate more than the mafia, it is a liar. I wish the mafia would go out and kill all the liars and bury them in my yard. And I wouldn't tell the cops a thing. Not that I would be lying per se, but I would just get really quiet all of a sudden.
This kid has been in viral videos. This kid posed with someone who was naked. How is this in any way controlled? Like, I'm sorry, this seems like the least controlled thing. This seems like parents who aren't really putting their child before the paycheck. This doesn't look good. It really doesn't. I'm sorry, even giving the benefit of the doubt, come on. This obviously is not the fault of the child. It just really comes down to parenting. The thing that really bothers me is that it's like they're taking responsibility, but as soon as they take responsibility, they take a couple steps back and say, oh, well, he's allowed to do things because he's free. You know, kind of like the sexual thing of being like, we don't want him to be sexualized, but also if he feels nice in something that would be sexualized, we're not going to say anything. So it feels like they're saying a lot and saying nothing. Like everything they say seems to cancel out something else they said, so we're left with a big fat zero. So I don't really know what to make of this. To me, it seems like another situation that's similar to Desmond is Amazing, and as much as they should explore their identity, I don't think that doing it in this fashion will end up being healthy in the long run, even in the short run maybe. Anyways guys, let me know what you think about this. Let me know what you think about drag kids generally. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and let's get right into the fan art.